Imagine a city carved from concretes and control, where wide boulevards stretch empty under a sky that feels too still, and bronze statues of the eternal leader cast long shadows over disciplined citizens. This is Pyongyang, the heart of one of the most isolated, strictly controlled nations on Earth. Every step, every glance, every word is measured. Faith is absent, or so it seems. Yet in the diplomatic district, something stands that feels almost impossible. A golden dome, a crescent moon catching the morning light. The Ar-Rahman Mosque, the only mosque in North Korea. To the casual observer, it is just a building. To those who understand the layers beneath the silence, it is a paradox. In a land where expressing independent belief can be fatal, here exists a structure dedicated to worship. Not for the citizens, not for the children raised to idolize a dynasty, but for foreign diplomats and a select few visitors, carefully controlled, monitored, and permitted. Its existence sparks questions that echo beyond the walls of Pyongyang. Why build a mosque in a state that officially recognizes no religion? Is it simply a political gesture, a way to show the outside world that North Korea respects faith? Or is it something deeper, a quiet acknowledgement that even in totalitarian control, belief cannot be entirely erased? The history behind this anomaly stretches centuries back. Long before the peninsula was divided, the winds of trade carried Islam to these lands. Turkic traders fleeing empires, refugees moving along Silk Road routes, all brought more than goods. They brought belief, whispers of a faith that quietly touched local communities. Most traces vanished under war, isolation, and the consolidation of power. By the time the Kim dynasty rose, any visible practice of Islam or any religion had been systematically eliminated. Faith became not just discouraged, but dangerous. In modern Pyongyang, the rules are absolute. No communal prayer, no halal food, no Quran openly displayed. Every movement is watched by the Inminban neighborhood system. Every word can be reported. A prayer is not merely spiritual, it is political. Survival replaces devotion. The city itself feels like a controlled experiment in human obedience. And yet the mosque endures, gleaming under the harsh scrutiny of the state, a symbol both of isolation and resilience. Even in silence, belief leaves traces. Stories from defectors hint at hidden manuscripts, secret rituals, or small gestures of devotion preserved inside homes. Faith here is private, internalized, sometimes nearly abstract, but not gone. It has adapted, retreated, and survived despite decades of enforced atheism. So, here's a question for you. If a mosque exists where citizens cannot enter, where does faith truly live? Is it in the building itself, or in the invisible threads of memory and defiance carried quietly by those who once knew it? Drop a comment below. I want to hear your thoughts on this paradox of belief in North Korea. Because before we explore the daily struggles of those who would try to practice Islam here, you need to understand one thing. This is not just a story about a building. It's about survival, memory, and a faith that refuses to die, even when the price of a single prayer is a life in the shadows. But how does one actually survive in a land where the walls have ears? Life for a believer in North Korea is not measured in congregations or holy texts, it is measured in survival. Outside the diplomatic district, where the Ar-Rahman Mosque stands, 25 million people live under a system that suppresses faith in every imaginable way. Religion here is not simply discouraged, it is dangerous. To be labeled religious can place you in the so-called hostile class, a category that determines your social standing, opportunities, and even your life. Everyday acts of devotion become impossible. Halal food does not exist in a country where the state controls the public distribution system. Corn, rice, and pork dominate meals, and refusing what is offered is seen as an act of defiance, political, not spiritual. Fasting during Ramadan becomes not an expression of faith, but a physical challenge that can risk your health or attract unwanted attention. Even accessing a Quran, if smuggled in digitally or physically, is punishable by imprisonment or worse. Surveillance is constant. The Inminban, a neighborhood monitoring system, watches every apartment block. A single bow toward the Qibla or a moment of ritual washing can be flagged as suspicious. Public prayer does not exist. The Ummah here is reduced to the individual praying alone, in darkness, with fear in the room like a shadow. Community, the lifeblood of faith, is absent. Every practice is private, hidden, and internalized. Yet, despite these extreme restrictions, resilience persists. Defectors tell of small acts of quiet devotion, families remembering ancestors' prayers, hidden manuscripts, secret dietary rituals, or whispered verses in the privacy of a home. These fragments of faith endure not in mosques or schools, but in memory, habit, and defiance. Faith becomes a ghost, intangible yet real, carried in the heart where the state cannot reach. The Ar-Rahman Mosque itself exemplifies this contradiction. It is a gilded cage, a visible symbol of tolerance for foreign eyes, yet inaccessible to the majority of citizens. Diplomats may enter, perform prayers, and maintain ritual, but the nation at large sees only the building's reflection in propaganda reports, not in practice. Faith exists on the margins, mediated by geography and politics. This is why belief here becomes both fragile and powerful. Stripped of ritual, community, and public acknowledgement, it becomes internalized, abstract, and resistant. It is no longer about the physical act of worship, but about memory, identity, and quiet defiance. In North Korea, faith doesn't live in the minarets. It lives in the silence between heartbeats. It is a ghost in the machine of the state. Now, I want you to reflect on this. Could faith truly survive if it cannot be expressed openly? If even the simplest acts of worship are forbidden? How much of belief depends on a community, and how much can live purely inside the human heart? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to see your perspective on invisible resilience under extreme oppression. Because in North Korea, the survival of Islam is not measured in congregations or sermons. It is measured in the quiet persistence of memory, courage, and the refusal to let faith vanish entirely. And as we move to the next section, we'll see how this ghostly private faith intersects with history, politics, and the enduring shadow of a mosque that no one inside the country can freely enter. The story of Islam in North Korea is not just about control. It is a tale of survival across centuries. Before the peninsula was divided, Muslim traders and refugees traveled along the Silk Road, leaving faint traces of belief in cities like Wonsan and Pyongyang. Small communities prayed, celebrated, and preserved texts. But war, colonialism, and the rise of a totalitarian state erased nearly all evidence. By the time the Kim dynasty consolidated power, religion had become not just a private choice, but a potential death sentence. Today, the Ar-Rahman Mosque stands as the sole reminder of this history. Its golden dome is visible only to a select few, yet its presence tells a larger story. Faith can endure even when institutions vanish. While North Korea enforces ideological purity through the 10 principles for the establishment of a monolithic ideological system, faith survives quietly in hearts, in memories, and in whispers from defectors who carry fragments of belief across borders. It exists as a ghost, intangible, resilient, and quietly defiant. The paradox of this mosque and the invisible faith around it reveals a deeper truth about human resilience. Control can dominate streets, monitor windows, and dictate behavior. It can rewrite history and erase rituals, but it cannot fully erase belief. Even in a country built on absolute obedience, some aspects of faith retreat, adapt, and survive, proving that the human spirit cannot be completely contained. For viewers today, the story of North Korea's lone mosque is more than a curiosity. It is a reflection on the endurance of ideas that cannot be fully controlled. It challenges us to consider the cost of survival, the power of memory, and the ways in which belief can exist even under extreme oppression. The mosque, though inaccessible to most, symbolizes both suppression and quiet defiance, a reminder that faith, in its most abstract form, can outlast walls, guards, and ideology. So here's something to think about. If belief can survive without visibility, without community, without ritual, what does that say about the nature of faith itself? Could it be that the purest forms of devotion are those carried silently in the face of danger? If this story resonates with you, leave a comment sharing your thoughts and make sure to subscribe. By joining this community, you help ensure that even the most hidden histories, stories of courage, resilience, and quiet defiance are brought to light. Because while empires may fall and walls may crumble, the truth of the heart is the only thing history cannot execute. The golden dome still stands, and the silence speaks for itself.